So it was supposed to be a chill day, no cameras, no press, no royal waves, just the Wales family relaxing at Anmer Hall. Picture it. William, Kate, the kids, maybe a board game, maybe tree climbing, maybe Charlotte being her fabulous little self. All was calm until Queen Camilla showed up. Out of the blue. On the surface, it looked like a simple family check-in, but anyone who's been around royal drama long enough knows nothing is just casual. Camilla had an agenda, and one item on that list, Princess Charlotte. Now let's talk about our girl for a second. Charlotte is not your typical royal kid. She's not just sweet smiles and perfect curtsies. Nope, she's got grit, fire. She's the kind of child who looks you dead in the eye when she speaks. Graceful, yes, but fierce as a lioness. William and Kate, they've tried to keep their kids grounded. They've picked a more modern approach. None of that stiff upper lip all the time. Charlotte plays sports, climbs trees, and dances like no one's watching. She's got questions, opinions, and doesn't mind voicing them, especially when it counts. So Camilla, coming from the old school royal handbook, decides it's time Charlotte follows her brother George to boarding school at Berkshire. Her reasoning? Tough love builds character. It's the royal way. It's how she was raised. Send them off young, let them harden up. But William and Kate? They're not about that life. They chose Lamrock for a reason, focused on emotional well-being, balance, individuality. Not obedience drills. Now here's where it gets juicy. Camilla starts voicing her views, talking discipline, shaping the future princess, structure, the whole lecture. What she doesn't realize, Charlotte is nearby, listening. And then, like a boss, Charlotte walks in, calm, composed, all of 9 years old. She looks at Camilla and drops the line, "I don't need a school to teach me how to be a princess." Silence. You could hear a crown drop. William, frozen. Then gently rests his hand on Charlotte's shoulder. Camilla, she stares for a second, no words, and walks back inside. Just like that. But the moment, oh, it exploded. Within hours, whispers turned into full-blown headlines. The press didn't even need footage. The words were enough. Social media went feral. Memes of Charlotte in armor, Camilla as a dragon. Boom. Hashtags like Little Lioness were everywhere. Inside the palace, chaos. Damage control meetings kicked off. William and Kate were proud, but worried. They'd worked so hard to protect their kids from the spotlight, and now Charlotte had shattered that bubble. Unintentionally, but undeniably. Did they scold her? Nope. Quite the opposite. William took her for bike rides through the woods, reassuring her she did nothing wrong, because she didn't. She told the truth, with strength, with clarity, and she did it respectfully. The world saw it, and the world loved her for it. Meanwhile, Camilla, oh, she was not okay. She felt blindsided, misunderstood. She thought she was helping. She truly believed the traditional path was best because it's what worked for her. But the optics, not great. The public sided with Charlotte. The narrative was set. Camilla's team went into spin mode. Behind the scenes, they worked the press. A statement finally came, sugar-coated, carefully crafted. It praised Charlotte's strong spirit and said parenting styles differ. But Camilla was rattled. She told her closest circle she only meant well. She wanted Charlotte to be ready for the brutal spotlight, but Camilla was realizing times had changed. Kids now are raised to speak up, not just smile and wave. And Charlotte, she had just led that revolution in one sentence. William understood it all too well. He'd lived through the old system, never being asked how he felt. Now he was determined his kids would never feel like just royal robots. He remembered how his mother, Diana, faced backlash for breaking norms, but she held her ground. She raised William and Harry with hugs and heart, and now William was continuing that legacy with Kate. Kate moved quickly too. She shielded Charlotte from the public buzz. Screens were taken away, no tabloids, no drama in the house, but she knew deep down Charlotte spoke up because she felt safe, and that for a parent means something was going very right. One night, Charlotte asked her dad, "Did I make it worse?" William's response? "You told the truth. That never makes things worse." Cue the goosebumps. Soon things at home returned to normal. On the outside, Charlotte went back to school, same backpack, same netball game, same giggles with friends. But those around her noticed something different, a quiet strength, a new maturity, like she had stepped into her own power and wasn't about to let it go. Her teachers treated her just like any other kid, and that was the whole point. At home, Kate filled evenings with music, baking, laughter. William kept up their bike rides. Nothing forced, just love and space. But the public? Oh, they weren't letting this go. Think pieces exploded. Headlines called her the face of modern girlhood. Talk shows couldn't get enough. Polls showed massive public support, not just for her, but for the idea that royalty could be human. And Charlotte became more than a little princess. She became a symbol. Meanwhile, Camilla powered through her events, smile on, ribbons cut, but those who really knew her said the sparkle had dulled. The incident dug up old scars. He'd worked for years to be accepted, to be steady, and now a child had undone all of it with one line. King Charles? He tried to play mediator. He told Camilla that times were changing, that Charlotte's boldness wasn't rebellion, it was the future. Quietly, he backed William and Kate. No press release, no grand speech, just silent support. But inside the palace, it said everything. After all this, whispers began swirling behind palace walls. Should royal children have fewer appearances or more of a voice? What is the modern royal way? No one had answers. But one thing was clear. Charlotte had changed the game. She kept being herself, dancing barefoot, asking hard questions, choosing her own favorite things. One day, while coloring in school, she looked up and asked her teacher, "Are all queens kind?" The teacher paused. "Some are, some aren't." Charlotte nodded. "Okay," then went back to her drawing. And that moment, that was it. She wasn't trying to make headlines. She wasn't pushing back for attention. She was just being Charlotte. A girl who knew who she was, who understood kindness, strength, and truth, who refused to be shaped by anyone else's idea of what royalty should look like. And in a world where so many voices are silenced by status or tradition, that soft, certain no might just be the loudest legacy she ever leaves. Now, here's the part people don't talk about enough. What happens after the headlines fade? Not every story in the palace makes the papers. And after Charlotte's bold moment, the public frenzy slowly settled. For the most, but inside those grand stone walls, the aftershocks didn't stop. Oh no, if anything, they got quieter and heavier. Camilla had always prided herself on being the steady hand of the royal family, the one who didn't rock the boat. And yet, here she was, made to look outdated and cold by a child. A little girl in a cardigan and ponytail had unknowingly struck a chord so deep it rattled years of image building. And worse, no one came to her defense, not the tabloids, not the palace aides, not even Charles in any formal way. He loved her, yes, but this wasn't the kind of fight he could win with charm. The world had moved on, and the queen consort, she was starting to feel like she didn't belong in it. Back at Anmere Hall, though, the Wales household was calm, but not because things were easy, because they were being careful. William and Kate knew Charlotte had crossed a line, not a disrespectful one, but a visible one. The line between private and public, child and voice. It had changed how the world saw her and how the palace saw their parenting. One day, in a very hush-hush meeting behind closed doors, a senior aide reportedly asked Kate, "Should we prepare Charlotte for more media exposure?" Kate didn't hesitate. "No, prepare the world to leave her alone." Boom. That's a mother. You'd think the drama would end with one line, one headline, and a few opinion pieces, but nope, this was bigger than anyone realized. Suddenly, other royal parents started talking, not in the press, of course, but behind velvet curtains and over quiet lunches. Was it time to rethink how they raised the next generation of royals? Was the old boarding school, no emotion, learn to wave and smile method finally dying? Because if Charlotte could stand her ground with a queen, what would her cousins start doing? An insider claimed that a cousin of Charlotte's, who shall remain unnamed but has had her own share of spotlight, asked her parents, "Why can't I go to normal school too?" The pressure was on. Even palace advisors were being pulled into these conversations. Terms like modernization, soft power, and emotional literacy were suddenly being used in memos that used to only mention horse shows and state banquet. And at the center of it all, a 9-year-old who just wanted to go to school, play netball, and maybe save the bees. Despite everything, Charlotte didn't suddenly become a diva or a symbol with a crown. That's the twist. She stayed grounded, no demands, no tantrums, no "do you know who I am" vibes. Charlotte was still helping her mom in the kitchen, still building Lego castles with Louis, still calling George annoying, but only on Tuesdays. But her spirit had clearly grown wings. One afternoon, she sat with her dad while he drank tea and read a report. She looked up and asked, "Why do people care what I say so much?" William paused, then smiled. "Because you said something real, and real is rare." That's when it clicked for her. She didn't have to shout to be heard. She didn't have to impress to be respected. She just had to be herself. And that's what the world had seen. It wasn't just about school, it was about standing up with grace, not aggression. That's what shook people. A child who was raised with enough love and trust to speak her mind with kindness. It gave hope, oddly enough, in a world of polished images and peel-crafted smiles. Camilla tried to keep moving. Charity events, ribbon cuttings, a new garden initiative, always smiling, always polished. But those close to her, they noticed the cracks. One lady-in-waiting, under anonymity, shared that Camilla began second-guessing her place in the modern monarchy. She'd spent decades being hated, then tolerated, then finally somewhat accepted, and now all that careful progress felt undone by a child sentence. Camilla had always thought she knew what royal strength meant, but Charlotte redefined it, and the people chose her. She wasn't just embarrassed, she was shaken to her core. Because if Charlotte's version of royalty was what the future wanted, then what did that make her? Behind all this was Kate, the quiet power player. While the media obsessed over Charlotte's sass and Camilla's stumble, Kate was doing what she always did best, shaping the narrative without saying a word. She kept her daughter protected, yes, but she also let her be seen, not as a spectacle, but as a person. Kate made sure Charlotte still rode her pony, still visited farms, still drew with sidewalk chalk on weekends. She wasn't about to let one moment define her daughter's childhood, but she also wasn't going to pretend it hadn't happened. Instead, she leaned into it. She started advocating more privately for modern schooling among the royal circles. She began having longer talks with educators, and more importantly, she showed her daughter by example that you could be royal and real. That's the legacy she's crafting, and is showing. As months passed, the frenzy died down, but Charlotte's words, they stuck. And something had clearly shifted in the monarchy. Not a full-blown revolution, no, but a quiet pivot. One that said, maybe tradition isn't broken, maybe it just needs to evolve. Behind the scenes, Charlotte got back to her childhood. She joined a student-led recycling project, painted posters for an upcoming charity fair, asked her teacher if birds cry when they lose a nest. Spoiler, the teacher didn't know. Had to Google it. And slowly, she was no longer the girl who clapped back at the Queen. She was just Charlotte again, the little girl who loved nature, jokes, and storytelling. But everyone around her, inside and outside the palace, knew something else. This was just the beginning. Charlotte wasn't going to be the princess who smiled politely and waved. She was going to be the princess who asked why, who spoke when needed, and who chose grace over obedience. And when the time came, when she had her own crown to carry, whether symbolic or literal, people would remember this story. The day she looked a queen in the eye and said, "No, thank you." Not with rebellion, not with rage, but with quiet power. And in that moment, she became unforgettable.